I wanted to bring this point up because both the Channel 7 commentators tonight and the Fox Footy experts in the studio, Gary Lyon, Jonathan Brown, Nick Grewalt, were all talking about how this was a game more like last year and you know, after so much attacking, free-flowing footy, all of a sudden we've sort of gone back to last year. But we've talked about, I've felt that this has now been the case. Well, this is one game, isn't it? But I've certainly felt the last 2 weeks that far more games have been played in keeping with that style of the last couple of seasons. And I was having a chat to Rodney Eade about this the other day, and he thinks that, you know, this isn't just a blip, that the coaches are starting to get a handle on how to counter things like the man on the mark rule. And we're seeing the game get dragged back into that defensive style. And, you know, look, I mean, the jury's still out, but I really hope that what the footy we've seen in the last couple of weeks isn't going to become the norm and the early season stuff prove an aberration, because I think we're all loving the sort of bit of throwback to the old style of footy, weren't we?
Were. One thing that again sticks and was proven to be the case tonight is the other element opening the game up and increasing the scoring, and that is the reduction of interchange. And with 2 early hamstring injuries tonight, of course, Nick Haynes, he lost to GWS, isn't he? Such an important, when you say no Whitfield, now no Haynes, that's where they lost their flair. But it opened up in that last quarter because that incessant, everything that was done becomes more difficult to do as you tire, and that's when the gaps open up and opportunities increase for scoring. So it was borne out again, wasn't it?
I just think, and it's hard to tell unless you're there, and you know, we obviously are watching more games on TV than we are in person, but I just get the feeling that coaches are getting a handle on how to block up that space in the corridor that was being opened up more by the man on the mark rule. And I think in a lot of cases, it's just about redeploying the positioning of the players behind the ball. And I sort of think there's a bit of a familiarity thing with it, that perhaps a lot of those sort of behind the ball structures had been set up in the belief that players would go down the line more often than switch play back inboard because it's been too hard with the man on the mark allowed to creep across. That changed, but it was like the structures weren't set up or sufficiently drilled well enough for sides without the ball to be able to plug those gaps. I think they're starting to do that now, and I think you're seeing, even with the man on the mark rule, the guy, say, taking the mark out on the wing, more reluctant to go back inboard than he was in the first 3 or 4 rounds of the season.
I agree with that. And I think there's another major change that has occurred that has diluted the impact of the rule. And that is the umpires are very quickly calling play on now, where 2 weeks they were really emphasising stand. While they were doing that, the play with the ball was taking advantage and off to the races. But now the play with the ball is being carefully policed by the umpire. And if they're play on the way, well, we're back to almost where we were last without the change in the rule, because they really are. And sometimes I've seen the player almost caught unaware with the ball. Have I played on, have I? So it's been policed with the man with the ball rather than the man on the mark.